Welcome to the Prep Huddle podcast. I'm KJ Pilcher alongside Jeff Linder, getting ready to break down what happened in last week's quarterfinals and then a look ahead to the state semifinals at the UNI-Dome. The field is set for all 7 classes. Jeff, this is, I don't know, maybe Vets Auditorium for wrestling. Maybe it's the same way with basketball, but now Wells Fargo. But I tell you, I don't know if there's a venue that's so synonymous or focused on the goal for teams to get there than the Unidome. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, I
That
agree.
this is hallowed ground a little bit, not to be too hyperbolic or goofy about it, but
Yeah,
this is something that just about every team hopes to finish their season at.
yeah, absolutely. You don't see many other, everybody says, oh, it's dome or bust or whatever, and the team's goals aren't to go 5-4 and get to the playoffs. I think everybody wants to, play their last game of the season indoors and wear those little elbow things that so you don't get turf elbow and get your arms all scuffed up. But yeah, this is it, and everybody's going to get to play in good weather now, and uh, this is why you do your two-a-days in August.
let's let's look back at last week and how the field got set for this week. Actually starts Wednesday with 8-player semifinals, but let's look at back at last week, and I think one of the marquee games among all the quarterfinals uh, was the matchup at Williamsburg between Mount Vernon, ranked 4th, and the number 3 Raiders. You were there in person. Sounded like kind of an instant classic. Can you
Yeah,
kind of break down that game and um, was it as good
yeah.
as
It,
Bill?
it it was one of those games where, if it's you or me that will kind of stay in our memory a long time. As somebody that was lucky enough to cover it. Just a really good offensive game. Mount Vernon actually had more yards, 457 to 375. Williamsburg won the game 38-35. A couple interceptions were really big. Race Heitman, who we've recognized as a heck of a playmaker, offense, defense, special teams, whatever. Mount Vernon was up 21-17 late first half and had the ball at the 5. So they're, you know, 5 yards away from going up 2 scores. Heitman makes a break on the ball, picks it off, returns it out a little bit of the ways, I don't know, maybe 15-yard line or so. And then Williamsburg goes down and scores in, a couple minutes left in the second quarter. And instead of being down 11, they're up 4 at half. And that was the breaking point in the game. And then there was another one where I got to find the name. Let's see. Simeon Armbrecht. Mount Vernon was trying to, back at the point, they were trying to go back and forth and both score. Nobody could stop the other team the whole game. But Armbrecht made a play where he tipped the ball up off of Romberg and tipped it up, caught it, and then they score a few plays later to go up 10 there in the third quarter, and then they held on to win the game. So yeah, just a great game. Spells the end of the career for Joey Romberg, the fine Mount Vernon quarterback. He had 315 yards. He was, other than a couple passes, he was great. And Derek Weiskopf had over 100 yards rushing, 100 yards passing, and then we both know how good of a defender he is too. So just a super ball game.
But let's talk just really quick. I mean, now you mentioned Heitman, all he's done. Heck, I think he gave Williamsburg like a 28-0 lead against South Tama before the offense
Yeah,
touched the ball once. But Derek Weiskopf, mentioning him and the fact that he stepped in at quarterback, and now Williamsburg's back in the semifinals. Kellen Cockrell's battled injury. I think he had an ankle or something that's caused him problems. Uh, has been in and out. But for Derek Weisskopf, to kind of step behind there, and for Williamsburg still be able to get the ball out to playmakers like Weegen and Heitman and Steckley. Um, Boy, that I've just been kind of in awe of him doing that. In addition to, you knew he was a good player, both sides of the
Yeah.
ball. That's why he's going to Iowa, and he's been on Iowa's radar for a few years.
Yeah.
Um, but for him to do this, I mean, that's pretty special.
Yeah. And just a tremendous athlete, multi-sport athlete, great basketball player. I've gotten to see him in track, state place winner in 3 field events, which never happens. Both throws plus the high jump. I'm sure he could long jump if he wanted. He could probably be a D1 decathlete if he wanted to be. So just a tremendous athlete, and somebody that I'm sure will pay close attention to when we do Athlete of the Year voting next summer.
Now, we'll just stay in 3A here really quick, even though neither one of us were at the game. Cully Klein, one of our correspondents, was. But you talk about classics, hard fought, really competitive, thrilling games. Boy, West Delaware and Solon, who will be facing Williamsburg again in the semis. Uh, they experienced that exact thing in the quarterfinals. Solon coming away with a 36-35 victory, and boy, West Delaware really challenged them.
Yeah.
But Solon coming away with their 10th straight victory, um, scoring 9 points in the fourth quarter to come away with a win.
Yeah. I know West Delaware was up 35-27 in the fourth. I think Solon drove down, the drive stalled. They kicked a field goal to get within 5. And then I think if I remember correctly, I think West Delaware fumbled the ensuing kickoff. And then Solon scored shortly thereafter to go ahead for good.
Wow. Uh, Talking to the Solon, I did a piece on the Solon seniors. You can check that at the Gazette.com. That was the lead into the quarterfinal, and asked them a little bit about what they're going to have to do to come out and win. And of course, the consensus comment from coaches and players was, we have to stop Brent Yakovic.
Yeah.
Didn't necessarily do a great job of that. Yakovic continued. He had a fantastic game against Davenport Assumption and followed that up with 363 total yards, 4 rushing TDs, 1 passing TD to Cash Hauser. But, Solon has just found a way to win. They've been gutsy and gritty. Their defense has come up with stops. Their special teams, obviously, a big turnover that helped them late. So that's just a testament. They just find a way to win.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's the best way to say it. And that refuse to lose. Excuse me. It's kind of overused, but that's Solon.
it really is. I mean, you talk about will and intangibles, right? Sometimes that can be a punchline or a joke almost with some things. But I think for Solon, that's a huge part of their success. Is that the whole tagline, carry your shield, do your job, put out fires. There are a lot of little buzzwords and phrases that they use, but I mean, I think they do take it to heart, and I mean, it shows in the way they play. I mean, uh, they had less than 100 yards rushing, but they had 3 touchdowns. So, those are stats that don't usually match up, but they did have Tyler Bell throw for 286 yards, including a touchdown to Eddie Johnson. But man, Solon, they just have that intangible quality that's carried them to the Unidome for the second time in 3 seasons, and now we'll get a rematch of the Raiders and Spartans, both 10-1. Solon won that game 21-14, I believe, at home in
Yeah.
the regular season. So,
And I think that's a game where they forced a couple critical turnovers against Williamsburg, and that's kind of the same thing that you were just talking about. They just find a way, and some programs are just like that. Xavier's like that. They're obviously Xavier's had a lot of talent, but that's a team that has always been a really, really tough out.
for sure, for sure. And that Williamsburg game, that defense, it's sneakily good. I mean, I don't think a lot of people really trumpet how good Solon's defense is, but Williamsburg backs had Solon's defense their backs against the wall a handful of times, and they got very little to show for it. And that just shows you how good Solon's defense is. And we'll see if Williamsburg can capitalize on some situations and find a way to get more points next time around. I was not there in person. I kind of monitored online because I was out of town. But East Buchanan, East Buchanan in the Class A quarterfinals. We're jumping around a little bit, but that's all right. East Buchanan coming away with a 30-16 win over St. Ansgar. Not even sure if it was really that close. I know it was 16-8 in the third quarter, but it just felt like East Buchanan really was in control the whole game, Jeff. Their defense in the first half really limited St. Ansgar, even though St. Ansgar had great field position most of the half, but it was the Buccaneers up 16-0. And that two touchdown runs by Tanner Torn, who had 3 total. But East Buchanan, their defense turned St. Ansgar away, and then they produced 2 long drives. One might have started at the 10. Another one started at the 20, and with penalties and a loss, I think they're to their 7 when they converted a long third down. So they actually went 93 yards, but they produced 2 long drives and finished it off with Torn touchdowns. And it was really impressive. You don't usually see that against a St. Ansgar team, especially with a team that is run oriented like East Buchanan. But they really imposed their will. Tanner Torn, all-time leading rusher for East Buck, and you can see why. He had like 183 yards unofficially, and I think 132 of them were in the first half. But Coach Alden, Jerry Alden, after the game, in a phone interview, talked about how we didn't have a lot of big runs, even though I think Torn did break a 50-yarder in one of those 2 scoring drives. But he said, it was 3, 4, 5 yards of carry. You've got it back like Tanner Torn, who I don't know if I've ever seen go backwards after he's been hit. Always going forward and getting extra yards, and that really was the difference. I mean, they were impressive. Hunter Bowers, St. Ansgar was still in the game. They did have a drive that was like 3rd or 4th and long from inside the Buccaneer 35. Hunter Bowers ends up with an interception, returns at 78 yards for a touchdown to really kind of seal it. Tanner Torn added another touchdown, but I tell you what, that was an impressive performance by the
Yeah.
Buccaneers. Um, and now they've got Woodbury Central who beat Loma 35-0. And as Jerry Alden mentioned, not sure you could get two more diverse offenses facing each other. East Buchanan rushed the ball 45 times, only threw two passes in their quarterfinal victory over St. Ansgar. And then, you look at the other side of the coin um, with, such a pass heavy um, team in
Yeah.
Woodbury Central. You
Yeah.
know,
And I think that is going to be kind of a game on who gets ahead early. If it's Woodbury, I don't know if how well East Buchanan is equipped to come from behind, especially if it gets to be two scores behind. On the other hand, if East Buck gets ahead, and they can start running and killing clock, um, that's not a good sign for Woodbury.
uh, Woodbury Central threw 20 times against Loma, 189 yards and three touchdowns. Of course, they never trailed. So, you were able to run the ball a little bit more than probably normal in that win against Loma. But that uh, that that'll be a fun game just because of the
Yeah.
contrast there in Class A. And that'll be a Thursday morning. We'll touch on that really quick. Any of the other area quarterfinals that kind of stand out to you? I know Jeff Johnson was at MFL Marmac. They
Yeah.
defeated Regina 22-7. Monticello beat Mediapolis in a hard fought game 34-28. And I think that, and then Western Dubuque
Western Dubuque. Yeah.
beat North Scott um, for the second time this season 21-7. North Polk defeated Cedar Rapids Xavier, ending their, I think, 3-year streak in the UNI-Dome. North Polk with their second straight 17-14 win at home. They beat Ballard the week before by the same score. Now the Comets are in the semifinals. Western Dubuque team I think we had consensus on would be at this position.
Yeah.
Um, Xavier just falls shy of getting back to the UNI-Dome.
Yeah. I think it looks like Western Dubuque's really kind of ratcheted up its defense once it's gotten to the postseason. They gave up a safety against Newton in the first round, just 7 points against a very potent North Scott team in the quarters. If they can play defense and limit the other team to 14 or less, you got to like their chances. With the weapons they have, especially Mr. Glouser in the backfield.
How about MFL Marmac and Monticello? They're going to make their
Yeah.
debut in the UNI-Dome.
Yeah, and good for both of them. I kind of thought Monticello would win. Excuse me. I thought MFL had a pretty good chance, but to go out there and limit Regina to one touchdown, I think that's really
Right,
impressive. And they've got Underwood next, right? And that's going to be a challenge because it looks like Underwood can score a lot of points.
right, right. And the interesting thing with MFL Marmac, I think they had been in this is their sixth playoff appearance, just six times in school history, right? And I think the last 5 years they've ended their season in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and to
Or
you
the
know
last
to
four. Sorry, the
yeah
last four. This was their fifth straight. Lost a toughie to West Branch last week, and then for them to, you know, get over that hump, uh, do it against, a team that's a program that's one of the most decorated in
yeah
all small schools and in Regina. Um, that was pretty big. Um,
yeah
it
really nice
sounded like,
breakthrough for MFL.
yeah, and for Monticello too. This is don't want to sell anybody else short because it is a team game, and Preston Reese will be the first one to really point to his teammates. Um, but he had another big game. I think he accounted for uh, all five touchdowns uh, that the Panthers scored, including a late touchdown pass to Peyton Schilling, who made a diving grab on just inside the out of bounds line past the pylon for what turned out to be the game winner. But just Preston Reese, I mean, who would you compare him to that as a singular figure has had the biggest impact, on a team in carrying them?
Yeah, I
Not necessarily carry them. That's a bad term,
yeah.
but
Yeah, he's far from a one-man show, but boy, he's a difference maker for Monticello. And when you got somebody like him, you've got a chance. And I know they're going to have their hands full against Van Meter. As far as comparisons, boy, I'm probably the wrong person to ask that. I mean, he's a horse. He's a stud, and another really good athlete. He's a little bit like Weiskopf, and
that's
he can do a lot of things on both sides of the ball. But boy, the night I saw him was against Mount Vernon, the season opener. Mount Vernon had more good kids in that game, but you could tell even in that game that he's a special athlete and a special football player.
yeah. He had over 500 yards of offense against Mediapolis, going for 576 yards, four rushing touchdowns, and then that passing TD to Peyton Schilling. Schilling caught four balls for 82 yards. Ty Tolman, 187 receiving yards on 8 catches as well. So really good targets for Reese. And then on the defensive side, Reese with 11 tackles, 7 solo tackles, three of them for loss, um, one sack. So, it's not just one thing. He does a little bit of everything for him on both
Yeah,
sides of the ball too. A consummate team player as
yeah,
well, and now Monticello gets to go to the Dome for the first time. So that's pretty cool. Great accomplishment for Monticello and for MFL Marmac, um, getting to the Unidome. Uh, just kind of go over all the scores here from last week, starting in Class 5A. Southeast Polk defeats Cedar Falls 21-20 in a tight game. West Des Moines Valley starting the season or the postseason with a losing record. They are in the semifinals after beating Waukee 20-7. Ankeny Centennial, another team um, that uh, I believe was at just over 500, 5-4 maybe when they started. They beat Bettendorf 41-14, and then of course the upset um, that really raised a lot of eyebrows there. Number 6 Ankeny defeated number 2 West Des Moines Dowling 14-7. Um, Boy, you knew Southeast Polk was there. They got through with a tight one, but three other teams. Is it safe to say that you know 75% of the teams in 5A making the Unidome are surprises?
yeah, yeah. But boy, it just shows. Again, I know we've kind of beaten this to death, and maybe
Yeah,
especially me, but it just shows how deep the CIML is in football, and for those quote unquote second tier teams that aren't Southeast Polk and Dowling, for those other three to get through is boy, and Southeast Polk and Dowling had played some close games, against some of
you
these
had
other
mentioned
teams
that
all
throughout the
year.
season.
Yeah,
I remember
so
you mentioning that they had been winning, but not necessarily the dominant
yeah,
uh, scores, and that could come into play. It looks like you're right on.
yeah. And would it blow your socks off if a 6-5 Valley team beat Southeast Polk in the semis? I don't think so. I I wouldn't bet too much against Valley right now. They're playing really well. Were they 1-5 at one point?
1-5 or 1-4.
Yeah. So, they're 6-5. They're probably as confident as anybody right now. And who knows how that those 5A brackets will go into Ankeny, and Ankeny Centennial will be a lot of fun.
Right. That's uh that's for sure. We said it last week, when they were uh when we were talking about the Ankeny Centennial and Bettendorf pairing, that Ankeny Centennial is kind of a not your typical or 6-4 team or 5-4 team when the postseason started. So, that just shows you how good they are with what they're able to do. 41-14 over
Yeah.
Bettendorf. I'm just looking up West Des Moines Valley here to see. I just remember uh yeah, they were 0-4 and 1-5 at one point.
Yeah. And week one, Southeast Polk played Valley 24-18. So,
Yep. Yeah.
um, yeah,
You
it's,
know, the,
I
the only
suppose,
blowout loss they had was to Waukee. Um, you know, and they've caught fire here the last
yeah,
5 weeks. Uh, really quick in Class 4A, we mentioned Western Dubuque with the 21-7 win. North Polk beating Xavier 17-14. Council Bluffs Lewis Central storms back in the second half to beat ADM 32-21 to get back to the Unidome. And then Bondurant Farrar 31-21 over Glenwood. Battle of 6 versus 7 there. Bondurant Farrar talked to one of the coaches last night, and a lot of Eastern Iowa connections there on the Bondurant for our staff. Um, you've got Zach Fance, the head coach, um, who's a former co guy. Their defensive coordinator is Hunter Semiroff, who was a uh, D back for Benton Community and for Co as well. Joe Brannon, the QB coach, Matt Kelly, the O line coach there, also Co Hawk. So connection there with Bondurant Farrar and our metro in circulation area. But this was a class all year. We talked about the parity, right? And when it comes down to it, um, the number 1, the 3, the 4, and the 6 um, all make it. Number 2 and 5 had to play against the 1 and 4. So really, with all the parity, you still kind of have the top 6 teams in the
yeah,
semifinals. So those top teams have continued to advance, but this is one of the most competitive
yeah,
classes.
yeah. We,
Has been.
we talked about the pods of death, before, we went from 16 to 4 teams. Now that we're where we are now, is there a more balanced group of 4 teams than what we've got left in 4A?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if there is. Looking at Class 3A, in addition to Solon and Williamsburg winning, number 1 Creston beat Webster City 50-27 to remain unbeaten. Sioux City Heelan knocks off Sioux Center 27-26 in overtime. So you'll have Solon and Williamsburg, Heelan and Creston in the semis there. In Class
That that
2A,
uh, that
oh,
Creston game, I think they were down 19-0 to Webster
oh,
City.
really?
I think they were
Oh,
having some
wow.
big problems with that single wing that Webster City throws out there, and they're down 19-0. I think they got right back in it, and then they ran away and won it. Was it 50-27? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know,
Great
Creston,
adjustment.
I don't know if there's a more under the radar number 1 team out there than Creston, but boy, they're good.
Yeah, they've really put together a great season under a fairly new coach.
Yeah.
I believe. So, in Class 2A, Central Lyon, George Little Rock defeated Carroll Kemper 48-27. Van Meter with a tough one, 31-21 over PCM. Spirit Lake Park with a big win, 2019 over West Lyon, third ranked West Lyon there. So uh, Spirit Lake and Central Lyon will go at it in the semis. Van Meter and we mentioned Van Meter Monticello in the other semifinal there. So, any surprises there other than Spirit Lake? Even though
Yeah.
that
I,
was that really was a game that could go either way.
yeah, I was surprised by that. I thought West Lyon was probably the better team there, but Spirit Lakes had a fine program as well. I, the way things are going, you shouldn't bank on anything, but I'd be surprised if the 2A final was anything other than Van Meter and Central Lyon GLR.
In Class A, we or Class 1A, excuse me, we mentioned MFL Marmac making the semifinals for the first time. They'll face number 2 Underwood. They won 43-8 at OABCIG. Underwood's been one of the more impressive teams in all classes, really.
Yeah,
So that'll be a big chore for MFL Marmac. The other two, Grundy Center defeated Dyke New Hartford 40-0.
that's the one that
Grundy Center,
surprised me.
yeah, because
That,
Grundy's had some close games.
yep,
And wasn't it 7-6
yeah,
Grundy over Dyke earlier this season, the opener, right?
yeah. And I kind of thought Dyke could go over there and win, but boy, Grundy turned it on last week.
And of course, they'll face Waterloo Columbus, who defeated Sumner Fredericksburg. Big win for the Sailors there, 35-14. Columbus has kind of been kind of a team that's hovered around the top 10 or lower half of the polls. And boy, they've really put together a good season uh, as well. So they'll face Grundy Center in one of the semis in Class 1A. In Class A, we mentioned East Buchanan with a big win over top-ranked St. Ansgar. Uh, Jerry Alden pointed out that was the first time that they've gone on the road to beat a top-ranked team in the postseason since 1989 when they went to Parkersburg and won 14-0. So that tells you how big of a feat that was for the Buccaneers.
Yeah, if they're gonna go all the way, they're probably gonna have to beat 1, 2, and either 3 or 4 in succession. So they'll absolutely have earned it.
And that's beating number 5 um, in the
Yeah, they
uh,
beat
in the
Lisbon
second.
yeah, you're right. You're
So it
right.
could go 5-1, 2, 3, or 4.
Yeah,
That's quite the gauntlet, and the Buccaneers have done well so far. Of course, we mentioned number 2 Woodbury Central beat Loma 35-0. On the other side, the other semifinal will be number 3 West Hancock versus number 4 Madrid. Madrid beat ACGC 21-14, and then West Hancock put up 44 points on Wapsie Valley's defense to win 44-22. So, very impressive performance there by West Hancock against a defense that had been very stingy all season.
yeah. I didn't see. I thought that'd be I thought maybe 14 to 20 points would win that game. I sure didn't see him by putting 44 up on the board.
There. Um, and then an 8-player, Winfield Mount Union. That was the day before. That was on Thursday. Winfield Mount Union wins a close one against Don Bosco, 34-29. Bedford defeats Lennox, 36-24. Algona Garrigan, team that's kind of been not necessarily Cinderella, but certainly a spoiler here. They beat Remsen St. Mary's previously and then beat Caminita 26-16 in the quarters. And Gladrook Rhinebeck, I believe, eventually lost to Clarksville earlier in the season and beat number 5 Clarksville 32-20 to set up Wednesday semifinals at 10 a.m. I'm going to Garrigan 10-1 faces Winfield Mount Union, our number 1 11 That's 11-0. They face off at 10 a.m. on Wednesday. Then Gladbrook Rhinebeck versus Bedford. Gladbrook Rhinebeck 10-1. Bedford 11-0. Play at 1 p.m. On Wednesday to kick off the semifinals.
Yeah, should be two good ball games. Bedford's kind of flown under the radar with us. They're number 3, 11-0, having a great year. Winfield's got the two Division I kids. Garrigan's knocked off 2 really good teams to get to this point, and Gladbrook Rhinebeck, a program that not too long ago won back-to-back state championships in Class A. Down into the 8-player ranks now, and they've got some playmakers, and that I think that Bedford Gladbrook Rhinebeck game is going to be fantastic.
Moving on to Thursday, Class A and 4A will compete at the UNI-Dome. Things will start with Class A at 10 a.m. Madrid 11-0 versus West Hancock 10-1. Then at 1 p.m. East Buchanan 9-2 versus Woodbury Central 11-0. Thing that kind of comes to mind a little bit with this is, your best defense might be an offense that controls the ball.
Yeah.
Do you think that's applicable for East Buck to be able to
Sure
make finals?
Yeah, and if they can, what are there if there's 48 minutes in a high school football game, if they could hang on to the ball for maybe 28 of that and keep the offense of Woodbury off the field, yeah, absolutely. And if anybody can do it, it's East Buchanan, because they've got the good line. They've got good running backs, and yeah, they might just be able to grind that 5-6 yards at a time.
Yeah, that's another thing too. We talk a lot about Tanner Torn and Hunter Powers and their playmaking ability, but don't forget they have one of the most highly touted offensive guards in Cody Fox that has been a difference maker, and I think that's what they did against St. Ansgar, running Torn right behind them, and just if you can continue to do that, there's no reason why you can't come out on top.
I tell Tanner Torn, just hang on to the football in one hand and put the other hand in a belt loop of Cody Fox, and just run right behind him, and peek around and look for some daylight if you can do that, and just hog the ball.
Yep. You only need 3.5 yards of carry, right?
Yeah.
So, in Class 4A, they'll start off at 4 p.m. North Polk 9-2 versus Lewis Central 9-2. Really excited to see the 7 o'clock game. Bondurant Farrar 9-2 versus Western Dubuque 10-1. That could be a classic as well. You've got duties on Thursday, so you'll have East Buck and Woodbury Central, and you'll also finish the day off with this game, Blue Jays and the Bobcats. What are you thinking there in that semifinal?
I think I'm gonna be pretty lucky guy, because I'm gonna get to see 2 pretty darn good games, and hopefully I can get my 1 o'clock story written pretty quick, because I like to just kind of sit and watch the Lewis Central North Polk game as a bystander. I think that's going to be a terrific game too. So I think Thursday is going to be a really fun day.
On Friday, Class 1A and 5A will take the field at 10 a.m. Waterloo Columbus, kind of a hometown team there. 9-2. Grundy Center not far away either at 11-0. Very familiar with the UNI-Dome. That should be a good one. And then at 1 p.m. MFL Marmac 10-1 versus Underwood 10-1. MFL Marmac, a run heavy team, very aggressive and quick defense. Could they cause some problems for Underwood, who I think we thought this was right there with Grundy Center as one of the top 2 teams in this class all year long.
Yeah, and they're kind of in the same mode as as East Buchanan. I think they're gonna need to shorten the game, control the ball and keep Underwood off the field as much as they can because Underwood's really explosive.
Then in 5A, we've got West Des Moines Valley 6-5 versus Southeast Polk 11-0. Can't count out Valley with what they've been able to do the last few weeks. We talked about how they've really regrouped after, that slow, tough start to the season. They really seem to pick up momentum, kind of beating up on some teams like Waterloo West and Marshalltown, but you can't dispute what they've done in the postseason, going to Pleasant Valley and winning there, and then getting a big week to big win to avenge a loss to Waukee last week to be here in this spot. So I still think Southeast Polk is the kind of head and shoulders above everybody else. But you know what? That might not come into play here when you get to this point of the season. Throw the records out, right? That's the cliche.
Yeah.
And West Des Moines Valley has proven that. And then you've got the town battle, about 90 minutes away from their home. Ankeny Centennial 7-4 versus Ankeny 8-3 at 7 p.m. To finish off Friday night.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun.
That'll be a big battle there as well. Saturday, Class 2A and 3A starts with Monticello 10-1 versus Van Meter 11-0 at 10 a.m. Spirit Lake Park 10-1 versus Central Lyon George Little Rock 11-0 at 1. I know Van Meter's probably a heavy favorite, but you can't count Monticello out. They've got a difference maker. They do have some really good playmakers on the outside that if you're going to key so much on Preston Reese that they can burn you. We mentioned Ty Tallman, we mentioned Peyton Schilling. They've got some other guys that contribute as well and can catch the ball. So, Van Meter's got to play him straight up. I still think Van Meter probably is maybe a better all-around team, but if Monticello still has the ability to come away with a victory and make it to the finals, and I just think Central Lyon George Little Rock is just too much for just about anybody. Don't see them faltering against Spirit Lake Park in that one.
Yeah, and I'd say Monticello might be kind of in the opposite boat that we were saying about, East Buchanan and MFL needing to kind of, keep the ball away. If you're Monticello, I think you got to just let it rip and, just try to outscore them.
Oh, sure. And they like that style of play. Watched them against North Fayette Valley, and they don't mind opening it up, and you can hit big runs with Reese, and they can air it out too, and got some guys that can go catch it. So it'll be interesting to see if they're able to do that, and if they do make it a track. Kind of like who did Mount Vernon play the one year?
Was it Spirit Lake?
Might have been.
Was that the 70-56 game or something like that?
Yeah.
I think that might have been Spirit Lake. Yeah.
Maybe watch video of that one. And then we'll finish up the semifinal Saturday night. Sioux City Heelan 10-1 versus Creston, our number one 11-0. They're set to play at 4, and then everything finishes off with that rematch. Really excited to see this one. Number 3 Williamsburg 10-1 versus number 2 Solon 10-1 at 7 p.m. at the UNI-Dome. That game at Solon, it was kind of our first cold, windy game. Won't be the case at the UNI-Dome, obviously. Williamsburg, I guarantee you, they went back and looked at that film to see, kind of the missed opportunities. They're going to be focused on being able to get that back, fix the mistakes that they made. And Solon, you know, there was still a lot that they had, to fix after that win. But their defense looked really, really good. I think you have to have kind of the same approach defensively that you did then, and then offensively, try to get uh, Pointon established and run the ball well, and then let Bell and guys like Eddie Johnson and some other
Yeah.
playmakers. Uh,
I think, that's our
complement the
game of
run
the
game.
week, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I,
And
I and I think that trio of teams with Solon, Mount Vernon, and Williamsburg. I
yeah,
mean, them having to go through each other. Those have been the marquee
yeah.
matchups last year.
I think that game's going to come down to who plays cleaner football, who can limit their mistakes. They're both really, really good. When they played at Solon last time, Solon played the cleaner game.
Uh-huh.
Um, if I just think they're both good enough that one mistake or a field position flaw or something like that here or there might be the difference in that one.
For sure, for sure. So a lot of fun games ahead this week. Again, they start Wednesday morning with just 8 player on Wednesday, and then 2 classes a day, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Um, as we mentioned, Jeff, you'll have our area games Thursday, which includes East Buchanan, Woodbury Central in Class A, Class 4A, Bondurant Farrar, Western Dubuque. Jeff Johnson will be covering MFL Marmac versus Underwood in Class 1A on Friday, and I'll have 2A and 3A on Saturday with Monticello versus Van Meter in the morning, and then the semifinal finale with Williamsburg Solon uh, Saturday night in 3A. You can check out all of our coverage at thegazette.com. Jeff, you were nice enough to uh, do capsules, kind of previewing each of our area matchups that we've mentioned. Um, those are at thegazette.com.
Yep, I'll
Um,
try to have those up tomorrow morning.
and I'll have a feature here probably sometime Wednesday, shortly after you get the capsules posted. I'll have a Western Dubuque feature to kind of kick off our pun intended, kick off our semifinal um, previews. Um, so look for that at thegazette.com, as well as all of our coverage over the next 4 days. Any final thoughts, Jeff, before we bid everyone adieu and get ready for the semis?
No, not really. I'm thankful we have the dome, even though that the weather's supposed to be pretty good this weekend anyway. But yeah, I think it's going to be a great, what is it, 14 games we've got left here this week, and you know, I still don't think there's really a clear-cut favorite in any of the classes. Maybe Central Lyon, Georgia Little Rock as much as anybody, but
Right.
I think we're going to see a lot of really competitive football games here the next 4 days.
I I agree with you fully on that one. Just want to say good work down at Extreme Arena last week with the state volleyball championships. Nobody better um, when it comes to that. You know, uh, great job there. So hope you had a good time and
Yeah, it was good. It was good. It's a good venue for it. They've done a really good job down in Coralville the last couple of years, and I think they found a pretty darn good home for it.
awesome, awesome. And we're glad to have our dome for football as well. I know there was maybe some questions last year whether or not the football semifinals and finals would stay here, but they are. Of course, there's also the IHSSN uh,
Yeah,
TV debate going on. We won't really jump into that fully. We can maybe touch on that next week when
yeah,
Jeff Johnson is with us as well. But um, you just have to check out and see where it's available. online. And
Yeah. Don't know if you saw
best
it,
thing is to get there in person. But
yeah, yeah. Don't know if you saw it, the news out there that Nick Brooks from Kennedy is decommitted from Iowa.
I did not see that.
Yeah, he's opening up his recruiting again. So we'll see where that goes.
Wow. Wow. You have to think it's stemming from the recent announcement and the change of offensive coordinator that was
I would
made.
think so. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't.
but that doesn't mean he wouldn't recommit, right? That's something where
We could.
depending on who they decide
Yeah,
might come in, or once they realize, okay, Kirk's going to stay. A
yeah.
lot of
I don't know,
variables.
and I don't know if anybody has kind of gotten in his ear. Some other schools, even though he'd already committed, if they're they're saying, hey, you don't have an offensive coordinator right now, and so I don't know. I don't
That
know
very,
where it's going
that
to
very
go
well
from
could
here.
be.
Yeah.
So we'll keep an eye on that as well, and wish uh, Mr. Brooks good luck with you know reopening that commitment and finding place, whether it be back in Iowa City or somewhere else to further his academic and athletic career. So,
Right.
all right. Well, Jeff, thanks again.
Yeah.
You've been a ton of work the last 2 weeks with
Oh, we all
volleyball
have.
and
We all
returning to
have.
football. Thanks to Nathan Ford for doing all setting this up for us so we can chat football for everybody. Uh, we'll see ya. We'll plan on one more here next week, whether it be myself and Jeff or JJ or all three of us. Um, I'm not sure what everybody has going on, but we'll look forward to coming back and talking more before the finals next week. Thanks for watching and enjoy the football here with the state semifinals this weekend.